Welcome back to the SleeperWire Great Debate Show for Week 3. As always, I'm your host, Sheahan. The record-breaking week is almost done and dusted, and I hope you're on the right side of those last-minute game winners and the torn hamstring plague. Joining me at the podium tonight is one of our awesome team of writers at SleeperWire, though he's currently on writing IR. It's our IDP expert, Aaron Nihart. Thanks for coming on, Aaron.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been a long time coming. I'm excited to be here.
It's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to chatting football with you. Now, we're about an hour and a half away from the Monday night games kicking off. Do you need any Monday night miracles tonight?
Oh, no miracles tonight. I need a stat correction miracle in my league of record.
Yep.
But other than that, we're just enjoying the game tonight. As a Buckeye fan, I'm looking forward to watching Zeke hopefully put it together. But other than that, I'm just ready for some good football.
I think I need Dak to outscore Devonta Smith by about 2 points to remain undefeated in Scott Fishbowl. So that's my goal, and anything else will be a bonus from there. And I try to do this every Monday. I didn't do it today on Twitter because it never gets any traction. But tell me, who will you write about this week?
Oh, well, see, that's a part of the thing. My call of the week that went right technically that I got some grief for was I started in my league of record Alexander Madison over Antonio Gibson this week.
Wow.
That was to piggyback off of last week's. For those who missed it, we talked about J.D. McKissick versus who was the other one? It was
Cordero
Patterson. And I tend to fall into the group that would favor J.D. McKissick, and I'm not as high on Antonio Gibson as I was. And I thought that the opportunity would be there for Madison this week, and sure enough, he did outscore Gibson. But I did pull up, as of right now, 0.08. Yeah, that's 8/100ths of a point short in that league right now.
That's so tough. I lost week 1 by 0.02, and I was out. I said to Nader at the time on the main podcast, I'd been to every church, mosque, temple, wherever Tom Cruise goes in the local area to try and get something to happen. But I'm still hoping that something happens there. But I think it's long since gone. But tonight, we're not talking about J.D. McKissick. We're not talking about Cordero Patterson. We're not talking about running backs at all. In fact, we are talking about 2 AFC receivers who both found the end zone this week. Emmanuel Sanders, presently of the Buffalo Bills, and Hunter Renfrow of the Las Vegas Raiders. As always, we'll each have 2 minutes to make the case for our player, followed by a minute of rebuttal. At the end of the debates, we'll cover any additional thoughts. We'll have a look at some other waivers for the week, so stay tuned until the end. And of course, we have the challenge flag that no one's used so far, but each of us can throw our challenge flag once during the other person's time. Your challenge must be in the form of a question, can't be in the first 30 seconds of the other person's spiel. Aaron, you're, of course, presenting the case for Manny Sanders, formerly of your beloved Steelers. But first, here's why you should be adding Hunter Renfrow to your roster this week. Well, let's start at the very beginning. Hunter Renfrow is an outfielder for the Boston Red Sox. Nope, that's the wrong one. Hunter Renfrow, 6 targets, 5 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown against the Dolphins. It's the fewest targets he's seen on the year so far, but he's shown he has an excellent 5-catch floor each week through the 3 weeks of the season. And what's more, he's averaging more yards per reception than Darren Waller. That's right, the centerpiece of that Raiders offense is not as mighty as the mighty Hunter Renfrow. His 16 catches so far this season, 10 have gone for first downs. That shows you that Derek Carr trusts him on key plays. They don't call him third and Renfrow for nothing. Last year, his passer rating when targeted was 106.8. This year is 116.5. Rightly or wrongly, Derek Carr has a reputation as captain check down. Well, who does he check down to? I'll give you a clue. It rhymes with Schmunter Schmenfro. Through 3 weeks, he's averaging 14.1 points per game in PPR leagues. He's also averaging just over 7 targets per game. As I said, 6 targets this week was the lowest he's had all season. And although there's some potential regression there, he's on track to have over 100 targets this season. His percentage share of Carr's air yards and targets are both higher than last year, and all signs are pointing to a career best year. Now, we talk about handcuffs with running backs. It's going to be a big week for handcuffs on the waiver wire with the aforementioned Alexander Madison with Chuba Hubbard. But I tell you what, if there's ever a handcuff for a tight end, it is Hunter Renfrow. If something was to happen to Darren Waller, and most certainly hope that is not, Renfrow is the man to pick up that slack.
All right, all right. Give me that flag. Give me that flag. Give me that flag. Come on. Right, I've been waiting on it. I'm ready for that flag.
Jump in. Tell me why I'm wrong.
So I love what you're getting at, the Waller handcuff and everything. I've not heard one mention of Brian Edwards or Henry Ruggs. Do you honestly feel that Hunter Renfrow is in front of both of them in the pecking order in Las Vegas?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think that at his core, Derek Carr is still captain checkdown. He's still that conservative player as well as he's playing. Like obviously we saw last year with Nelson Aguilar stretching the field. We're seeing with Ruggs this year. We're seeing with Edwards this year. But, you know, he's a conservative guy. He's going to take his shots once or twice down the field, but by and large, he's going to make his hay between the 5 and the 15 yards from the line of scrimmage. And that's where Darren Waller lives. That's where Hunter Renfrow lives. Waller's closed. I can see him checking down to Renfrow more often than he's going to chuck one up for Henry Ruggs, as good as Ruggs looked yesterday.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that stance. Thank you for your answer.
No, that's fair. That's why we have the challenge flag. And I'm almost at the end of my time here, but I'll finish up and say there's 2 ways to win big in Vegas. One of them's counting cards. The other one is going to be picking up Hunter Renfrow from your waiver wire this week. And with that, you can tell me why else I'm wrong.
Okay. Well, let's see. For as far as I view Hunter Renfrow, part of these you'll hear me hit on with Emmanuel Sanders. He's never finished a top 50 wide receiver. I know this is only year 3 or 4 for him. He's never averaged 10 yards per catch, which again you just alluded to. You're cool with the 5 to 15 yard checkdowns. That's totally fine. In my view, I think that he is the wide receiver 4 on the team. That doesn't always equate to wide receiver 4 production. I do think that they would like to get the ball to Edwards, Ruggs, Waller, all ahead of Hunter Renfrow. He is kind of that last ditch option, but that does hold value. Does that hold the value that I necessarily want? It's not got the potential, but it's got the potential to not lose you your week, which is understandable. Other than that, I'm going to save the rest that I've got for my little spiel. I don't see the high end potential, which is what I'm looking for in the waiver wire personally.
Now that's a very compelling case, and I think they're excellent points you raised. But it's one thing to try and belittle someone and beat down another guy, but we're here about positivity. So tell me why, although Hunter Renfrow is good, Emmanuel Sanders is better.
All right. So with Emmanuel Sanders, I think that you're looking at kind of the opposite of what you're getting with Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow, it's a lot of projection. Emmanuel Sanders has already done everything that I'm about to say. And I think that the point that he's 34 years old and he's got his quarterback coming out and saying, this guy's got juice. Josh Allen went on record after the game saying this dude still has it at a level never before. Sanders has got the right attitude. You've got to prove yourself every time. These fans don't know me yet. I got to come out every week. This past weekend, 5 catches, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was great. And it was on his lowest target share of the entire season so far. Emmanuel Sanders, same amount of targets through 3 games as Hunter Renfrow. So he's got that check down like production option to him. He's also looking at 17 yards per catch so far this season, which sounds like a lot, but when you break it down throughout his career, he's never had less than 10 yards a catch. So 17 is well within his scope of outcomes, especially when you got the juice, like Josh Allen says. Are you about to throw the challenge on me?
I thought about it.
Okay. So, I mean, the thing with Emmanuel Sanders for me that I really was interested in breaking down during this research, to me, he has been one of those wash receivers as of late, at least in my viewpoint. He's actually finished a wide receiver 3 or higher in 3 of the last 4 seasons. In 12-team leagues, despite only 1 complete season being played during that time. I think that you could make the argument that he is the wide receiver 2 on this Bills roster. You could go anywhere from 2 to 4, depending on your stance on Cole Beasley. I think he's the wide receiver 2. Josh Allen, he's got 127 targets per game, or 127 targets so far this year, 42 per game, versus Derek Carr's 34 per game. So you're getting a few more targets. You're getting a better quarterback, in my view. And as far as I'm concerned, the Bills are inept at running the ball. They're going to pass it. The Raiders want to
run. Just in under that 2-minute timer there. Well, that's some speedy talking, and you'll be pleased to know that actually you're my first guest who's made it that 2-minute timer. So you're a veritable marathon man compared to Natter, compared to Laquan Jones, and compared to Chris Allen. So no, that's excellent. Clearly had a lot of points, but
well, this was actually kind of cool to research for me because, like I said, when you approached me about Emmanuel Sanders, I was more on the skeptical end of him myself as I started. And the more that I dove in, the more that you read the reports, the more that you see the stats of recent that I haven't given him enough respect for, the more I kind of kept snowballing into it and bought in more than I anticipated I was going to.
Well, that's that's part of the beauty of the great debate is you do get to hear both sides. But now let me tell you why you're wrong about it, as much as you might have enjoyed researching it. So let's be honest here. He's had one significant performance, and that was against Washington, who are the second worst team in the league in defending wide receivers so far this season. You mentioned he is 34 years old. You don't get too many receivers still playing at that age. You don't get too many receivers still performing at that age. And how's he going to go when the weather gets colder in upstate New York? You can't be running off the field for steamed hams. Those old knees, those old bones, those old shoulders are really going to start feeling the cold. We've seen who he is. The last 2 years, he's averaged just over 11 PPR points per game. For his blow-up game against Washington, he scored 9.2 points against the Steelers, 6.8 points against the Dolphins. And that was in a game they won 35-0. So for me, that predictable production is just not there. The second best ability in the NFL is predictability. That's what Hunter Renfrow gives you. The last 3 years, Sanders has played 34 games. You'd have been glad to have started him in 14 of those, and that is not a good strike rate for someone who is in the back half of their career.
Yep. I think you make some great points. Another thing that I was interested in seeing as you were talking about durability that I didn't look up myself that I was kind of disappointed in. Do you want to take a crack at the snap percentage for Hunter Renfrow versus Emmanuel Sanders?
Just this week?
So far this season, on average.
I know that Sanders has more snaps than any other Bills receiver, and Renfrow, I think, is behind, as you say, Waller, Edwards, and Ruggs.
Yep. Hunter Renfrow is sitting at a perfect 50% average, and Emmanuel Sanders is at 91.
That's, yeah.
Well, I suppose, and predictability.
I suppose we can use this as our launching off point for more of the general discussion. I think you raise an excellent point there, is that you can't score points when you're not on the field. My counter to that, and although we're past the debate, is that when Renfrow's on the field, they throw to him. So even if he's not out there all the time, I would be more excited by those numbers if they were reversed, because it would mean that they're not running around the Bills aren't running around their 34-year-old receiver. They're using him in select packages. They're using him when they want to use him, and then when he's out on the field, they're throwing the ball to him, which is what's happening with Renfrow. Got to remember that they're by and in large, a run-first team in Vegas, and I actually didn't look at their formations and how often they do it. I might do it live while we're on air. So I say it live. It won't be live by the time you're listening to this.
I've got some stats. Josh Jacobs, he averaged 19 rushes a game in 2020 while healthy. So far this season in 3 games, Buffalo has averaged 20 attempts a game as a team. And 20 attempts per the running backs. Josh Allen also has 20 attempts. So
yeah, they've really started to gear that up in the last couple of weeks. And Moss and Singletary have looked better. Let's have a look here. So the Raiders in their most common formations this year, Hunter Renfrow is in the top 3. So when he's out there on their most successful packages, he's out there, and also on the formations they're calling, or the player combinations they're calling most often. Which sort of goes to the point that when he's out there, they're throwing it to him. You know, he's there on 2nd and long, he's there on 3rd down, he's there for key plays, which is why I think he has some sort of value, which is why I think he's got that predictable floor compared to someone like J.D. McKissick, who ostensibly is going to be out there on passing downs, but they also have Antonio Gibson, and then you can't be sure that he's going to be out there. Whereas I think, at least with Renfrow, you know that the Raiders are going to get into 2nd and long. You know the Raiders are going to be on 3rd down, and those are those key plays where they bring him in. He might not be there on 1st and 10. but they also don't need him on those plays.
Yeah, that is certainly true. I think that's a great point about Emmanuel Sanders. 90% snap percentage. He's always going to be out there.
The discussion that inevitably comes up at the end on these kind of nebulous, broad section at the end of the great debate is it's all about roster construction. So if you're looking for a player who's not going to shit the bed on a bye week, that a player who's not going to cost you a week because they get a big fat 0 or a 1, then that player's Hunter Renfrow. You're dealing with his lack of ceiling because you're going with his floor. Whereas I think Emmanuel Sanders, he's the sort of guy you could put in to win a week, but you'd have to be prepared that perhaps he doesn't show up because, it's one thing to say he's the number one receiver, but you got to remember through those first 2 weeks, through 2 of the first 3 weeks, Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley have both seen double-digit targets.
Right.
So,
yeah, and you got to be prepared. You're absolutely right. You could have those 2 catch for 8-yard performances, and they're going to happen. But if you don't mind, real quick, I know we're running short on time. We got a segment left to get to.
Man, we have all the time in the world to talk about it. That's what we're here to do.
I really think that this will be fun and interactive for our listeners because it was really fun for me because I probably would have gotten it wrong. I want to take it back just 3 years. I've got three Raiders related questions, and it's not really trying to prove my point because it's not true right now. But I just want you to play along. In 2020, Las Vegas had how many of the top 50 wide receivers in fantasy football?
Wide receivers, probably 1, Nelson Aguilar.
And what do you remember his position was? What ranking out of 50?
I'd say he was probably maybe in the 30s.
Wide receiver 21 last year.
Wow, he left a lot of points out there too.
He sure did. In 2019, how many Las Vegas receivers were in the top 50?
Oh shit, who was even on their roster there?
I think it speaks a little to Derek Carr, a little to the Raiders organization, and probably not much to my point. But this is kind of
they definitely had Hunter Renfrow still, because that was his that was his rookie season. I'm gonna pass on that one. Who did they even have? So
they had one. It was Tyrell Williams.
Tyrell Williams,
and he was wide receiver 44 out of 50 in 2019.
Wow.
And then we'll take it back one more. 2018, 3 years ago now, it was a different wide receiver, not either of the two named. They had 1 in the top 50.
Goodness me, 2018. No,
it's a name.
I was going to say it wasn't. Amari Cooper had already left by then, hadn't he?
Yep.
Yeah,
he was 2017, the last time that they had 2 wide receivers in the top 50. Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree.
Oh, Michael Crabtree.
Yep. And in 2018,
it wasn't Crabtree in 18.
Nope.
No, I'm drawing a blank. Unless it was Emmanuel Sanders, which I'm 99% sure it was not.
Nope. Jordy Nelson, wide receiver 49.
Wow. I got to get onto Pro Football Reference to check this out. Not because I'm disputing it, but I'm just interested to see who these rubbish receivers were. Man, that was that was tough.
Thanks to our friends over at Fantasy Pros, 3 wide receivers of the last 3 years, which interestingly enough leads me to my last point, which you can discern for yourself. As of right now, the Raiders have all 3 wide receivers in the top 50. And Darren Waller is still tight end 4. Is this going to be the unicorn year, or is something's got to break?
Waller's a beast. Let's I'm just going to go back through the Raiders in 2018 for our listeners. Jared Cook was their most productive receiver with 68 catches, 896 yards, and 6 touchdowns. As you say, Jordy Nelson. We had Jalen Richard with 607 yards. Seth Roberts, if you remember him, 494. Amari Cooper's in there. And then Martavis Bryant, Marcel Aitman, who I was so high on. Brandon LaFell was still running around. That was Derek Carrier. I always remember that was funny because he had Derek Carr and then Derek Carrier, and we were hoping there was going to be Derek Carriest. But no, this is just that's an impact. Like Gruden's done well to get them to where he is. What I will say is that Carr has looked phenomenal this year, and they are looking like a different team. But I don't think it is going to be long, or I don't think it's going to take long for him to go back into his shell somewhat. I really liked Henry Ruggs this year, and I still really like Henry Ruggs this year because of Aguilar's production last year. And Ruggs is a better player than Aguilar. And I say that as a Patriots fan who is now just not excited to watch Aguilar for the next 13 weeks of the season. Thank God we won't be in the playoffs. That'll be more weeks. So I think there is value there for Henry Ruggs. And for me, he is the receiver to own on the Raiders, and that's why most people already have him on their roster. So, that leaves Renfrow, who I think has a solid floor. He's, at least to me, comparable to Cole Beasley. He might not see that raw volume, but he's equally as good a player. He gets open like you wouldn't believe. I think after Beasley, he might be the next best slot receiver in the NFL. And he returns punts as well. You never know if he's going to break one of those off.
Yeah, you can't beat reliability, and that's exactly what he's been so far this year. It's valuable. Yeah,
and, he's not a sexy name to have on your roster. And as I said already, if it's a bye week, we've got the bye weeks just around the corner. You can put him on your roster and he's not going to ruin it. I'd feel far more comfortable starting Hunter Renfrow than I would
Robbie Anderson.
Like Robbie Anderson, KJ Osborne, KJ Hamler. Certainly not KJ Hamler now. He's done his ACL. But, maybe not Henry Ruggs because I really like that ceiling. But I don't know, Elijah Moore, who ostensibly slot receiver with a higher ceiling.
Don't start Elijah Moore unless you absolutely have to. Just the Jets in general, still the Jets.
Yeah,
wait until that tide turns and then hop on. Just I can't condone it.
So before we move on to general waiver chat, do you have anything else to add about Sanders?
I don't. I mean, it. Part of me's happy being a Steelers fan. I wish he would have continued in the black and gold. The dude's made a great career out of it, and this looks like it could be a big year for him in Buffalo. I don't know if you just heard that, but something was outside.
Local motorcycle enthusiast going past.
Yes. No, I think Emmanuel Sanders has his place in this offense. It's a place that John Brown was meant to be last year. I think that for all the people like myself who love Gabriel Davis, it is clear that Buffalo is not interested in having him on the field in a large capacity still this season. And Emmanuel Sanders, the playing time speaks for itself. He's worth a flyer. If you need a win, he's got the ceiling to possibly get it done.
Yep, I think that snap count is what's really going to push a lot of people, and I think that's probably all the information you need this week to make that decision. So it's obviously this will come out before people's waivers runs. Who are you targeting this week?
Oh man, one that I think I'm going to target just because, again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm always looking for the ceiling plays, and he's the name of the hour. Josh Gordon in Kansas City could be. I'm not saying it will be. We don't know what kind of shape he's going to show up in. We don't know how he's going to mesh with the coaching staff. But having peak Josh Gordon with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, that could be incredible. The sky is the limit for that, and I'm very intrigued to see what it is. And he might be worth a bench stash, that's for sure.
I think if you've got a deep bench, it's worth it. I wouldn't be dropping anyone to pick him up. I think he's washed. And if we're talking about teams that probably can't support multiple receivers, we've seen in the past the Chiefs just don't. That Hill and Kelce are obviously A graders and as elite as you can get at their position, but there's really no wide receiver 2 in that offense. It's Hill or Kelce depending on the week.
Again, I think everything is a big question mark at this point because we've seen how good Josh Gordon can be. I think that with the wide receiver 2 in Kansas City stigma, He fills a role that they haven't necessarily had in a wide receiver too. He's big, he's tall, he's a faster Travis Kelce body type on the outside. Faster body type like Travis Kelce. He can go up. I'm not saying he's Travis Kelce like. I'm just saying he's another guy that size who can go up, high point a ball. Who knows what kind of shape he's in? Who knows what value he's going to bring? He's not Sammy Watkins. He's not Demarcus Robinson. He can be a huge wide receiver one, Calvin Johnson build sort of threat. He also could be somebody who just rolled off the couch for the first time in a year and a half. We don't know.
I'm sure he'll catch a touchdown. I have no interest. I'm going to let someone else. I've done the Josh Gordon ride, and
I think a lot of it.
That part of my life's over.
It stems from me. I've been burned on a couple wide receivers this year just repetitively. I'm looking for any excuse possible to trade Robbie Anderson for a bag of French fries or drop him for a wide receiver with two legs at this point. I've been burned on a lot of wide receivers. I've got a couple guys that like off my roster. And if putting Josh Gordon on my bench means not putting Robbie Anderson in my lineup, I'm almost to that point.
Well, I'd just caution you to maybe wait a week on Anderson. We saw what he did last year with McCaffrey out. We could see a bit more of that this year. We know he's got that connection with Sam Darnold anyway. Chuba Hubbard, we'll finish up talking about him, I suppose. McCaffrey's not going to IR, which means that I wrote in my article today that it's probably a 21-day hamstring. And they don't play for, I think the next game's Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football. He's not going to play next week, but he could potentially be back the week after that, unhampered. With that in mind, how much are you paying up for Chuba Hubbard for what could be a 2-week rental?
That's a great question. I mean, looking at those 2 weeks, he's got Dallas, Philadelphia, Minnesota. Dallas, great matchup. Minnesota, probably a great matchup. Philadelphia at home could be worse. If we're looking at what's the base? $200, Fab? Is that regular? Standard? What's
usually
standard?
100.
Oh,
if you're talking percentages, it all works out.
Chuba Hubbard redraft league. I probably, it all depends on your roster construction. Obviously, if you have Christian McCaffrey, you better pony up because you're going to need the wide receiver or the running back production most likely. I would probably be comfortable with throwing 20 to 24 on Chuba Hubbard is about it.
Yep.
I don't know if he's going to be a weekly winner. He's definitely got upside. If nobody else wants him, I'd take him. I'd start him. But you just don't know that you're spending on something that's going to hit hard with Chuba Hubbard.
I think tonight's game is going to be interesting as part of that because his next two games are Dallas and Philadelphia. They're the teams playing tonight. So if either of them get gashed on the ground, then that could be an indication that it's maybe worth paying up a little bit more to get Chuba Hubbard. But for me, I'm happy to let someone else waste their FAB here. It's probably going to be the same person who wasted their FAB on Elijah Mitchell. And, in the back end of the season, suddenly you can scoop up guys who might be league winners as opposed to those 1 week rentals. And just give me a name that some people might not be looking at while you're thinking. I'm going to say Tommy Tremble is one to watch on your waiver wire. I thought he looked really good. They used him as a running back. He made a nice play with some yak. I liked him in college. Notre Dame used him mostly as a blocker, but I think he's got a good amount of ability there. He's the tight end for Carolina. In case you missed the news, they traded Dan Arnold to the Jags for CJ Henderson. So RIP Darnold, Dan Arnold. But that opens the door for Tommy Tremble. So who have you got as a bit of a waiver sleeper before we wrap this up?
I'm personally going to consider this guy a sleeper, just because it is about the one of the most unsexy names of quarterbacks that you can possibly mention within the fantasy realm. If Kirk Cousins is available in your league, and there's going to be a lot of people that still write him off because it's Kirk Cousins, go look at the stats, watch some game film. Bye weeks are coming up. Even if you've got a good quarterback and you're going to need that waiver wire or that bye week quarterback coming up, get Kirk Cousins now. This dude is playing out of his mind. He's got 8 touchdowns this season and no interceptions. Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson look great. KJ Osborne, Tyler Conklin, he balled out this week. Give Kirk Cousins a look. He's a guy that I probably, if I've rostered, I'm obviously starting him. I'm riding the train for a bit. I would caution at the end. He's got a pretty dense schedule down playoff time. So maybe he's a guy, wait a week or two. If he's still rolling, sell high. But Kirk Cousins, if he's available, he should not be available in your leagues. If you're struggling at quarterback, he's a starter. If you've got a quarterback, go find you one that's going to win you your bye week.
I think that's excellent advice. I think if you're looking for a bye week fill-in as well, you could do worse than Taylor Heineke, who showed that he can get it done with his legs on the weekend. Well, that's probably all we have time for. It's probably we have gone longer than we normally would, but it's always good chat. So thanks for joining this week, Aaron, and you can tell the good people at home where they can find you.
Hey, thank you for having me. Twitter, Instagram, at Aaron Nihart. I am the first one to admit I do not enjoy Twitter. I do not like Twitter. I am making a decent effort to be more involved with Twitter. I know that's where the fantasy football world lives. I'm making an effort. You can find me at SleeperWire. This season, I'm going to be doing some IDP content. I'm also going to be trying to bounce in and out each week, getting a little creative. This week, you'll find a buy-sell article from myself, looking at some different players who you should be selling at the moment, and some guys like Kirk Cousins who you could be. Well, I guess Kirk Cousins would probably be a sell more than a buy, but some other guys and vice versa. I'm also going to be posting some college content, maybe some college betting, looking at guys like Spencer Rattler who do not look quite what we thought that they were going to be. Maybe some people on the other side of that coin. Stay tuned; it'll all come through SleeperWire. And hopefully I'll be on some more podcasts here on this channel.
That's excellent, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with us in that writing space. And I'm sure we'll have you back in the coming weeks. Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning into the great debate for this week. Don't forget, follow us on Twitter at SleeperWire Show. Chuck us a few dollars on Patreon if you're so inclined. But if not, then just subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. As always, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Sheahan Solo, and I'll catch you next time.